Hi gang, it's Dinah Dare and welcome to Dinah Dares to Plan, where I take the skills and experience that I have in project management for the last 9 years and apply them to the world of burlesque and cabaret. So this week we're picking up from where we left off last week. So we're going to be talking a bit more about the book The Culture Map by Erin Meyers and how we can apply the information in it into the world of burlesque and cabaret.
We are on to theme number 5, which is trusting. And this is how about cultures build trust, which I think is really important as we make connections and friendships from across the globe. So on one side of the scale there is task-based, and this is where trust is created through people doing what they said they would do. So our American friends are very big on the task-based scale. So if you ever make a promise to an American, American culture likes when decisions are made and a plan is created to follow that as well. On the other end of the scale, we have trust being built through relationship building. So this is where you take the time to ask personal questions and you get to know the person on a deeper level. So Brazil is a perfect example of a culture that is very based around relationships. If you don't take the time to get to know someone, you're probably going to be viewed with mistrust, and it can be harder to get things done or to work together effectively. So if you're visiting a culture that is more relationship based than your own, maybe you're sharing a room with someone at a festival or you're traveling, take the time to have long dinners or lunches with the people you're with. Ask them about their lives, remember things for the future, and follow up. This will go a massive way to leave a positive impression on them. Even if those of us who are on the more task based end, we feel like we're prying into someone's life by asking all these questions and sharing our own stories as well, but it does have such a positive impact. If you're in the opposite and you're visiting a more task based culture, understand that personal questions might be seen as a bit inappropriate. It might make the person uncomfortable if you're working together for the first time. I'd advise keeping things a bit more on the professional level, and don't expect much communication sort of outside of the business sense that you're working together in. The next thing that we're looking at is disagreeing, which is essentially, is the culture confrontational or not? So a confrontational culture finds open disagreement to be a good thing. It doesn't impact on personal relationships. The French are probably famous for this, is they love a debate, open to challenge very publicly, and it's considered important to have your own opinion on matters. A good dinner party in France has to include at least one heated debate, or it's just not a dinner party. I get that. Same. These disagreements don't negatively impact on relationships. If anything, they strengthen it. So if you're working in France and you find people challenging your views or like openly disagreeing with you, it's not an attack. The other end of the spectrum is cultures that avoid confrontation, and shock horror, the British are very much neither at this end. Open confrontation is viewed as inappropriate and it impacts like group harmony and relationships. So in a workplace, to openly have an argument labels you as troublesome or difficult. Been there. In China, this goes a step further, and there's a concept of actually like protecting another's face. So that kind of concept of group harmony and not tearing someone else down in public is considered more important than sharing what you think is right. And that ties in with a culture of social responsibility to each other that sort of China prizes itself on. So if you find yourself in a culture that is more avoidant than your own, it's just best to stay quiet. Disagreements can be taken much more personally. It could impact a relationship that you're trying really hard to build. You may also notice in the online sphere that avoidant cultures are a lot less likely to openly criticise someone harmful in the community. It doesn't necessarily mean that they don't agree that the person is harmful. It's just they would never do this in a public manner and are therefore likely just to avoid the person in question rather than speaking about it online. On to my favourite theme in this, which is scheduling. Have you ever been to a festival and it starts 2 hours later than advertised? Then you are probably in a culture that has a flexible approach to scheduling. These cultures focus more on adaptability and flexibility over sticking to rigid timescales. Extreme examples of this attitude is India, where meeting times are viewed as more of a suggestion. People may leave a meeting to take a phone call, subgroups break out in larger meetings. Slightly less extreme is the Italians. Again, meeting times are suggestions, and people can be up to an hour late, and it's just like really not considered rude. As a British person, I cannot explain to you how much I struggle with this. I've been brought up to believe that it's like late to be rude, you're wasting someone else's time, and it's super disrespectful. The US and Germany also very much lie on the linear side of the scale with us Brits. Like, we like to be early, we like tight schedules and structure, and like I said, it's often considered disrespectful to be late or for things to run later than expected. I personally also show up 10 minutes before a meeting time to an event. It's so ingrained in me to do this, and I get really anxious if I don't. Like, I can't help it. So, what do you do if you're visiting a culture that's opposite to yours in terms of scheduling? It's worth checking to see where they lie on the scale compared to you. I would have saved myself so much grief if I had done this before traveling previously. The safest default is to be on time for things and accept that you're probably going to have some time kicking about, maybe just wasting it. It's better than potentially being late and impacting on others and making a bad impression. Finally, we're talking about our last theme, which is persuading. I do struggle to see how this one applies to burlesque and cabaret as well, but I'm going to cover it. Persuading basically means how do we get someone to buy into our idea. So, in principle, first cultures, which is on one side of the scale, you want to build theoretical arguments using concepts or theories, which leads up to you then presenting like a fact, a statement, or an opinion. These cultures want to understand the thinking behind the conclusion before the conclusion is presented to them, almost bringing them along on the journey with you. A perfect example of this is actually how math is taught, specifically in like France and Germany. The theories and concepts behind the equation are taught so they can learn how to develop formulas for the problems. Whereas in Britain, which is an application first culture, the opposite is true. We're taught the equations and we practice doing it before we're ever taught the theory, and in some cases we just don't get taught the theory at all. It's also why in schools we are taught in Britain to present our conclusion in the introduction of an essay and then explain how we got there. But if you're trying to convince someone who is in a principles first culture, they're not going to understand why you're presenting your conclusion first. They want to understand. It's so ingrained in how we communicate that we often misunderstand each other when we're trying to explain things or have a debate across a culture, as it looks like we're not talking about the same thing. In actual fact, we are. We just approach it from slightly different perspectives. But you can really easily see how that means that you just completely like cross wires and miss each other entirely. That is me now talked about all of the themes that come up in the culture map. I genuinely find this stuff super interesting. I love thinking about how I apply it to my day job and also how I can apply it to the burlesque and cabaret world as well. Again, I would love to hear your thoughts. If any of this has resonated or made you sort of relook at a situation that's happened in the past and reconsider it with this new information, please let me know. If you do have any questions, queries, thoughts, concerns, just pop a wee comment. I am here to help. Thank you so much for hanging out with me today, guys, and I can't wait to see you soon. Bye.